The sound wasn't what I expected. I thought anger would be loud. Screaming. Cursing. Chaos. Instead, it was the slow, hollow crunch of wood giving up. Like bones breaking underwater. At 9:14 a.m., I stood barefoot on cold concrete, coffee still steaming in my hand, watching a bulldozer tear into the boathouse my grandfather built with his own hands. The same boathouse my wife and I carved our initials into 3 decades earlier. The same one I spent 6 months restoring while grieving her death. All of it was being destroyed over $300. That's when I saw her. Vivica Drummond. HOA president. Perfect hair. Perfect tan. Perfect smile. She stood 50 feet away, filming the demolition on her phone, sipping champagne from a plastic flute like she was toasting a wedding instead of a funeral. She wanted me to see her enjoying this. She wanted me small. Broken. What she didn't know, what no one in that HOA knew, was that I didn't just own the house they were destroying. I owned the land beneath every single one of their homes. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Maxwell Cordell. Max, if you're not trying to find me. I'm 52 years old, former structural engineer, the kind who designs things meant to survive hurricanes and earthquakes. I retired early after selling a handful of patents, thinking I'd spend my remaining years doing absolutely nothing stressful. Then cancer took my wife, Lillian. 18 months of hospitals. Chemo. Quiet car rides where either of us had the energy to speak. When she passed, the world didn't shatter. It went silent. The kind of silence that follows you room to room. 6 months later, my grandfather Dutch died in his sleep at 93. Korean War vet. Builder. The most stubborn man I've ever known. He built half the homes in our county by hand and taught me that land isn't owned, it's borrowed from the next generation. A week before he died, he told me, "The lake house is yours now, Maxie. Take care of her. She'll take care of you." Mirror Lake. 2.8 acres of Michigan waterfront. Bought in 1963, when the area was nothing but trees and ambition. Our house was the crown jewel. 7,200 square feet. Stone fireplace he mortgaged himself to build. And that boathouse, God, that boathouse. I moved in 3 months after the funeral. Sold my condo. Packed Lillian's recipe cards, her gardening books, her ridiculous collection of coffee mugs. The smell of cedar hit me the second I opened the door. Dutch replaced dock planks every decade like clockwork. You could still see pencil marks from where he measured each cut. I spent $400,000 renovating. Solar panels. Accessibility ramps. Grab bars. Restored the fireplace exactly as it looked in old photos. And the boathouse. I reinforced every beam, replaced shingles one by one, repainted it Dutch's original forest green. When I sanded around the initials, M+L inside a crooked heart, I cried and didn't stop. The lake became my therapy. Morning loons calling across the water. Coffee on the dock. The tire swing Lillian insisted we hang. For future grandkids. We never had them. I kept the swing anyway. What I didn't know, while I was grieving and rebuilding, was that the world around me had changed. A developer bought up 47 parcels around the lake. Built identical McMansions. Beige. Soulless. Expensive. Then came the HOA. Mirror Lake Estates. $24,400 a year in dues. My property predated the HOA, but Dutch, tired and aging, had signed something. I inherited that signature. And with it, $11,700 in back fees. The same week I finished restoring the boathouse, a certified letter arrived. Inside? A $300 fine. Reason: architectural violation. The boathouse color didn't match the HOA palette. At the bottom, handwritten in purple ink, "Legacy properties must comply with current standards. Looking forward to your cooperation. Viva smiley face." That smiley face? That was the first crack in the dam. Because when I called the HOA office, no one answered. And the next thing I heard was a bulldozer starting its engine. The voicemail played on repeat. You've reached Mirror Lake Estates HOA. Your community. Your home. Your investment. Vivica's voice was sweet enough to rot teeth. Every time I heard it, my jaw tightened a little more. I left 3 messages that day. Calm ones. Polite ones. The kind you leave when you still believe adults will act like adults. No call back. Instead, 2 days later, I got another certified letter. This one thicker. More official. Legal language bolded and underlined like it wanted to hurt me. Final notice of noncompliance. Failure to remedy violations would result in corrective action by the association. Corrective action. I'd spent my entire career calculating load tolerances and failure points. I knew a threat when I saw one. So I drove to the HOA office. It was housed inside a brand new stone building with glass walls and inspirational posters about community values. I sat in the lobby for 45 minutes while the receptionist pretended not to notice me. When Vivica finally emerged, she didn't invite me into her office. She didn't offer a chair. She didn't even say hello. She smiled. That same smile I would later see on demolition day. Max, right? She said, glancing at her clipboard. You're here about the boathouse. I told her it was my grandfather's structure. That it had stood there for 60 years. That it was restored, not rebuilt. That it was exempt. She sighed theatrically, like I was a child asking why the sky was blue. Legacy properties don't get special treatment, she said. Rules keep property values high. You should be grateful. I asked her if destroying a historic structure increased property values. She leaned closer and lowered her voice. Pay the fine. Repaint the boathouse. Or we'll handle it for you. That was the moment something shifted. I went home and started digging. Not emotionally. Legally. Old deeds. County plats. Survey records. Tax maps dating back to the 1940s. My grandfather kept everything. Meticulous. Almost paranoid. And that's when I found it. A land trust agreement from 1968. Mirror Lake wasn't divided the way everyone thought. The developer didn't own the land under those homes outright. Dutch and 3 other original owners had structured it differently. They retained subsurface and easement rights under the entire shoreline development. Meaning the roads, the utilities, the foundations. All sat on land I partially owned. I called a real estate attorney the same day. He went quiet halfway through reviewing the documents. Then he laughed. Max, he said, they can't touch your boathouse. I asked him about the demolition clause. They'd need a court order, he said. And even then, it'd be shaky. I felt relief for exactly 12 hours. At 8:52 the next morning, heavy machinery rolled down my driveway. No notice. No sheriff. No court order. Just steel teeth biting into memory. I ran outside in boxer shorts, shouting that they had no authority. Workers avoided eye contact. One guy whispered, "Sorry, man," like that made it better. And there she was. Vivica Drummond. Recording. Smiling. Sipping champagne. I screamed for her to stop. She didn't respond. She just tilted her phone so I'd be sure to see myself reflected in the screen, barefoot, powerless, shaking. When the boathouse collapsed, something else did too. Not grief. Patience. Because while Vivica believed she'd won, I was already preparing the paperwork that would freeze her entire neighborhood. And she had no idea what was coming. By noon, the boathouse was gone. 60 years of wood, nails, and memory reduced to splinters floating on Mirror Lake like a funeral wreath. The workers packed up fast, like they knew staying longer might make them complicit in something ugly. The last thing to leave my property was Vivica's white SUV. She didn't roll down the window. She didn't wave. She just drove off slowly, deliberately, making sure I watched. I stood there long after the dust settled. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by documents, deeds spread like a deck of cards, maps taped to the wall, Dutch's old survey notes, yellowed with age. Grief turned into focus. Focus turned into resolve. At 2:14 a.m., my attorney called me back. I reviewed everything again, he said. Max, this isn't just a wrongful demolition. I waited. This is potential fraud, abuse of HOA authority, and trespass on land they don't fully own. That last part hit hardest. Because while Vivica thought she controlled Mirror Lake Estates, the truth was buried in filings most people never bothered to read. The HOA owned the houses. The developer owned the surface lots. But the land beneath? The easements? The access roads circling the lake? They traced back to the original 4 families. Which meant the HOA operated entirely at our permission. And they had just violated it. The next morning, I didn't go to the HOA office. I went to the county. I filed a formal land rights assertion, followed by an emergency injunction request. My attorney moved fast, faster than Vivica ever expected someone, like me, to move. By 4 p.m., Mirror Lake Estates received a notice. All construction activities suspended pending land rights verification. That included landscaping, road work, pool installation, and most importantly, new home closings. That same evening, my phone started ringing. Unknown numbers. Realtors. Developers. An assistant claiming to represent the HOA's legal interests. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I posted one thing. A single certified letter, delivered to every homeowner. It was polite. Professional. 3 pages long. It explained that due to unresolved land ownership discrepancies, all HOA authority over common access points, docks, and lake usage was temporarily void. Effective immediately, the lake was closed. No boats. No swimming. No events. The lake Vivica charged $500 access fees for? Mine. The reaction was instant. Facebook groups exploded. Neighborhood chats turned feral. People who had never learned my name suddenly had opinions about my entitlement. Vivica called me at 9:03 p.m. For the first time. Her tone had changed. Max, she said, forcing warmth. This is unnecessary. We can resolve this privately. I asked her one question. Who authorized the demolition? Silence. Then she said it. The HOA board. I smiled for the first time in days. Great, I said. Then they can all testify. Her voice hardened. You're making enemies. No, I replied. I'm revealing them. The next morning, local news showed up. Someone leaked the story. A historic boathouse. A grieving widower. An HOA accused of overreach. Cameras love villains. And Vivica made a perfect one. But the real damage hadn't even started yet. Because while the public focused on the boathouse, my attorney was filing something far more dangerous, a forensic audit request on the HOA's finances. And if what we suspected was true, Vivica didn't just destroy my property. She'd been stealing from her own neighbors for years. And once that door opened, there was no closing it again. The audit request hit the HOA like a lightning strike. Within 48 hours, Mirror Lake Estates went from manicured calm to full-blown panic. Board members stopped answering calls. The HOA office suddenly had limited hours. Vivica, the woman who once thrived on confrontation, went quiet. That silence told me everything. Audits terrify HOAs for one reason. Most of them run on blind trust. Residents pay. Boards spend. Very few people ever check where the money actually goes. And when someone finally does, skeletons start rattling. The county approved our request fast. Too fast for comfort. One clerk even pulled me aside and whispered, "You're not the first complaint about this HOA. Just the first with paperwork." That night, I received an anonymous email. No name. No signature. Just a PDF attachment. I opened it. Bank statements. Vendor invoices. Reimbursement forms. Pages and pages of numbers that didn't add up unless you tried very hard to make them make sense. Vivica had been reimbursing herself. Luxury. Inspection lunches. Consulting fees paid to an LLC registered to her sister. Landscaping contracts triple billed under slightly different names. Over $600,000 over 4 years. And that was just what this stranger had access to. I forwarded everything to my attorney. He didn't respond with words. He sent a calendar invite. The emergency HOA meeting was scheduled for Saturday morning. Mandatory attendance. No proxies allowed. The kind of meeting boards call when they're bleeding and everyone knows it. I showed up early. So did the cameras. Channel 7. Channel 12. Even a freelancer live streaming from the parking lot. The headline was already forming. HOA president accused of destroying historic property, now facing financial misconduct claims. Vivica arrived last. Big sunglasses. Perfect hair. Tight smile. She didn't look at me. The meeting started tense and only got worse. Homeowners demanded answers. Shouted questions. Someone cried. Someone else asked why their dues had doubled in 3 years while the roads kept cracking. Vivica tried to regain control. She cited bylaws, procedures, complex accounting realities. Then my attorney stood up. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He displayed the documents on the projector. Line by line. Transaction by transaction. Gasps filled the room. When the demolition order came up, Vivica finally snapped. "You were in violation." She pointed at me. "You refused to comply." My attorney replied calmly. "You authorized destruction on land the HOA does not legally control." That's when the room changed. Because legality isn't opinion. It's math. And the math wasn't on her side. A board member resigned on the spot. Another demanded legal counsel. Then the county representative stood up. Effective immediately, Vivica Drummond was suspended pending investigation. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just sat there, frozen, realizing the crown had slipped. Outside, reporters swarmed. But I didn't stop. Because justice isn't just about stopping the person who hurt you. It's about fixing what they broke. I filed a civil suit for emotional distress, historic property destruction, and trespass. Then I filed something else. A petition to dissolve the HOA entirely. That part stunned everyone. Without control of the land, the HOA was a paper tiger. And once dissolved, every contract, every fine, every rule, gone. The residents started turning toward me, not with anger this time, but something else. Hope. But hope is dangerous. Because it meant they were about to ask me for something. And I had already decided my answer. By Monday morning, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Voicemails, emails, texts from numbers I didn't recognize. Homeowners. Lots of them. People I'd barely noticed before. People who used to nod politely while avoiding eye contact. Now they wanted meetings. Coffee. 5 minutes of my time. They weren't calling to argue anymore. They were calling because they were scared. The petition to dissolve the HOA spread through the neighborhood faster than gossip ever had. And once people actually read it, really read it, panic set in. No HOA meant no centralized maintenance. No enforcement. No illusion of protection they'd been sold when they bought those beige McMansions. Some residents were furious. Others were relieved. Most were confused. One message stood out. A woman named Carol. Lived 3 houses down from Vivica. Her text was simple. "Please don't destroy us like she destroyed you. Some of us never wanted this." That stopped me cold. Because here's the truth no one talks about with HOAs. Most of the power-hungry tyrants are a minority. They just scream the loudest. Everyone else pays dues and hopes to be left alone. So I called a town hall meeting. Not an HOA meeting. A neighborhood meeting. Held it right on my dock. The same dock Vivica tried to erase. More than 50 people showed up. Some stood. Some sat on coolers. One guy brought his dog. No clipboards. No bylaws. No threats. Just people. I told them everything. The land ownership. The demolition illegality. The audit. The lawsuit. I didn't sugarcoat a thing. I also didn't brag. Then I told them my plan. I wasn't dissolving the HOA to punish them. I was dissolving it to free them. In its place, I proposed something radical. A voluntary community trust. No fines. No liens. No forced compliance. Minimal fees. Transparent accounting. Elected oversight with term limits. Any major decision required a supermajority vote. And most importantly, the land lease. I would lease the underlying land to the trust for $1 a year. As long as it stayed that way, no developer could ever weaponize it again. Silence followed. Then questions. Hard ones. What if someone stops paying? What about property values? What if this fails? I answered honestly. Then we adapt. Together. No threats. No champagne smiles. Just accountability. The vote wasn't even close. Unanimous approval. Even the people who hated me voted yes, because they hated Vivica more. 2 weeks later, the HOA officially dissolved. Vivica's trial date was set. Charges included fraud, misuse of funds, and abuse of authority. She pled not guilty. Of course she did. The civil case moved faster. My damages were assessed. The judge didn't blink. Full rebuild of the boathouse. Emotional distress compensation. Legal fees. And one more thing. A public apology. Court ordered. Printed in the local paper. Front page. But the real moment came months later. On a quiet morning. Mist on the lake. The sound of loons calling again. I stood where the bulldozer had torn everything down. And watched the first new beam go up. Same design. Same forest green. Same initials carved into the frame. Some things can be rebuilt. Others have to be reclaimed. And Vivica? She drove past once. Didn't stop. Didn't wave. She didn't own the road anymore. And she never would again. The rebuild changed the tone of the entire neighborhood. It wasn't just wood and nails going back into place. It was trust. Slowly. Carefully. Like handling something fragile that had already been shattered once. People started showing up without being asked. One neighbor brought coffee every morning. Another helped haul lumber. A retired electrician rewired the boathouse for free and refused payment. He just said, "HOAs made me hate where I live. This feels better." That's when I realized something important. Vivica didn't just destroy my property. She poisoned the community. And rebuilding meant more than restoring a structure. It meant undoing years of quiet fear. Meanwhile, the legal storm around her grew darker. The anonymous whistleblower? Turned out to be the HOA's former treasurer. A mild, spreadsheet-loving man who'd been pushed out after questioning reimbursements. He'd kept copies of everything. Waiting. Hoping someone would finally listen. Now the state was listening. Subpoenas went out. Bank accounts were frozen. The consulting LLC vanished overnight. Her sister hired a lawyer. Then another. Vivica stopped showing up to hearings claiming medical issues. The judge wasn't amused. Then came discovery. That's where things really unraveled. Emails surfaced. Messages where Vivica bragged about teaching legacy owners a lesson. Where she talked about fines as leverage. Where she described demolishing my boathouse as setting an example. Those words hit harder than any bulldozer. Because it proved what I already felt that morning in my driveway. This was never about compliance. It was about control. The trial date approached, and the media attention doubled. National outlets picked it up. HOA horror story compilations. Legal commentary panels. Even a few developers quietly backed away from projects tied to similar structures. Pressure does funny things to people. 2 weeks before trial, her attorney called mine. They wanted to settle. Full admission. Restitution. Resignation from all boards. Lifetime ban from HOA leadership roles. And jail time avoided. My attorney asked me what I wanted. I thought about Lillian. About Dutch. About that first morning when the lake was quiet and everything felt like it might finally heal. I want the truth on record, I said. No sealed settlement. No quiet exit. She could plead guilty in open court. She did. No tears. No speech. Just a woman reading consequences she never thought would apply to her. 6 months probation. Heavy fines. Restitution paid to every homeowner affected by misused funds. Her reputation? Gone. The community trust officially took over management that same week. Financials were posted publicly. Monthly meetings were optional. Attendance dropped fast, because when people aren't scared, they stop obsessing. Property values didn't fall. They rose. Turns out buyers prefer neighborhoods without petty tyrants and arbitrary fines. The boathouse was finished by fall. On the final day, I carved the last detail myself. Not the initials. Something new. A small plaque inside the frame. It read, "Ownership is responsibility. Power is stewardship." I didn't put my name on it. Didn't need to. Because the real win wasn't revenge. It was reclaiming peace. And as winter rolled in, Mirror Lake froze over smooth and quiet again. But the story wasn't quite over. Because what happened here didn't stay here. Other neighborhoods were watching. And they were starting to ask the same question. Spring came early that year. The ice on Mirror Lake cracked and pulled apart like it was finally exhaling. Water moved again. Loons returned. That sound, lonely, echoing, honest, rolled across the shoreline the same way it had when Dutch was still alive. I sat on the rebuilt dock before sunrise, coffee in hand, boots on this time. No bulldozers. No clipboards. No threats taped to my door. Just water. What surprised me most wasn't the quiet. It was the emails. They started coming in after the trial clips went viral. HOA board members resigning in other states. Homeowners asking for document templates. Lawyers requesting permission to reference the case. One city council even cited it while proposing new oversight rules. Turns out, power hates sunlight. And Vivica had spent years operating in the dark. Mirror Lake Estates officially dissolved its HOA 6 months later. Not because it was forced, but because no one wanted it anymore. The community voted. Overwhelmingly. We replaced it with a voluntary neighborhood association. No fines. No liens. No enforcement letters in purple ink. Just shared maintenance and transparency. Funny thing? People started caring more once they weren't being bullied. As for Vivica Drummond, she sold her house quietly. No listing photos. No farewell post. Moved out before probation even ended. The champagne crowd vanished with her. I heard she tried to join another HOA board in a different county. They declined. Apparently, Google works just fine. The lake house healed me in ways therapy never could. I finished restoring the last room Lillian never got to see. Put her gardening books back on the shelf. Hung her favorite wind chimes by the window. Let them sing whenever the breeze rolled in. I still sand the boathouse door once a year. The initials are still there. M+L. Right where they belong. Sometimes neighbors stop by just to sit. To talk. To breathe. To tell me their own stories about rules gone wrong and people who forgot why communities exist in the first place. And every time, I tell them the same thing. Read what you sign. Question authority. And never assume someone with a clipboard knows more than someone who loves the land. I didn't set out to own the whole neighborhood. I just wanted to protect one small piece of it. Turns out, standing your ground can change more than just your own property line. If this story hit home, drop where you're watching from. And if you've ever felt powerless against an HOA, or anyone who thought money made them untouchable, remember this. The dirt remembers who it belongs to. And eventually, The truth always comes up.